everyone, distinguished alumni, honored guests, and students. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to David Prouty's High School Distinguished Alumni Day. When I was thinking about saying a few words today, one word kept popping into my mind, and that word is excellence. Our distinguished alumni are illustrious examples of the excellence that has been and remains a legacy of David Prouty High School and its graduates. Aristotle said, excellence is a habit. The dictionary states that excellence is the fact or the state of excelling. To me, excellence is being the best you can be in your chosen field and accomplishing your goals to the best of your ability. Excellence is satisfaction with your accomplishments and pride in your capabilities. Striving for excellence helps you succeed in life. It helps you see how far you have come and how far you have left to travel. Striving for excellence makes you a better human being. These distinguished alumni have made excellence a habit. Now I would like to introduce to you the chairperson of the Distinguished Alumni Association, Mr. Richard Gaudette.
Thank you very much. Before getting into the actual program, I think it's important that I give you a little background as to what started this program. The Distinguished Alumni Program was begun by two people, one of whom was a math teacher at the high school for a number of years and then ended up his career as junior high principal. The other person was a longtime member of the school committee. And both of them were good friends. They got together and they talked about the many graduates that they remembered who had gone on to achieve some form of greatness in their lives. And so they came up with the idea, you know, they said, maybe we should honor distinguished alumni because so many people from David Prouty go on to achieve greatness in their lives. And that is something that should be recognized. And so they started the Distinguished Alumni Program. And they ran it for, I want to say, maybe 9 or 10 years. And at that time, they were selecting one person a year. And then, for whatever reason, the program stopped for a few years. And then someone who had graduated had started his own business, didn't go on to any further schooling, just started a business of his own. And after running the business for a few years, he ended up selling it for $27 million. And this caused my brain to think, you know, this is kind of great. Perhaps that's pretty distinguished, and he should be recognized. So at that point, Dr. Hicks was superintendent of our district. So I approached him and I said, could I restart the Distinguished Alumni Program? And he said, absolutely, go ahead. So I've been doing it now for 10 years. and we've been doing 2 per year. And the people that we have selected year after year are people who have achieved a significant amount of greatness in their lives, and greatness that brings a lot of credit to David Prouty High School, because it's the education that you receive here that is the seed for what will happen in your later life. And I think it's important that you see it in that respect. So the people who are being honored today have achieved a significant amount of greatness in their lives, but they started out as students at David Prouty High School. David Prouty High School probably dates back to the early 1900s. And yes, I am a graduate of David Prouty High School. I was in the class of 1948. That's quite a while ago. And I know you probably are saying to yourselves, God, if you graduated that long ago, you must be old. I admit it. I am. But there's nothing wrong with being old. It's what all of us end up becoming. The important thing is that I did work on the staff at David Prouty High School for 45 years. I was a classroom teacher for 10 years. I was athletic director for 10 years. And I was guidance director for 32 years. So I was here for quite a while. And I'm still here. Some people are difficult to get rid of. But I think you'll certainly enjoy this morning's program, because the 2 people who are being honored have interesting backgrounds that they will speak about. So I will turn the program over to the principal, and she will announce. You're going to announce the...
Do you want me to, or do you want to?
Why don't you do it?
So our first honoree is Kevin J. Gaudette, PhD.
Well, good morning, Panthers. Look at that. I am not a morning person, so I was, and remembering back when I was less of a morning person, especially when I was a senior in high school at the end of my year, I would not have had that kind of enthusiasm, so that's pretty good stuff. Dr. Crow, Dr. Jordan, committee, and especially my family. I didn't know my entire family that's in the area was going to be here today, and that's really, really cool to see. I even ran into Dennis Streeter on the way in, who we used to run hoops together way back in the day. It's good to see him still floating around and giving back to Prouty. You couldn't ask for a more quality individual. And back in the day, before the knee issues, he was unbelievable. He had game. I can say that for sure. It is really, really hard to believe that it's been 30 years since I graduated. It's hard to even say that. I still remember when I was in high school watching my dad. It's kind of interesting to share the stage with my dad too, because I remember sitting way in the back by the door over there, and watching The Sound of Music and my dad playing Captain Von Trapp way back in the day. So that, and it's a little eerie, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a little eerie walking into the auditorium 30 years later. And despite all the kind words that have been said, I stand up here and I'm not quite sure why I'm here. I certainly, I'm very honored to be here, but you know, I certainly didn't sell a business for $27 million, I'll tell you that. But I'm humbled when I look at the pictures outside in the hallway. I'm humbled to be here. It's a great honor, and I really appreciate it. So many thanks to the committee, many thanks to everybody, many thanks to my family for being here, and a couple of the giants from the teaching staff when I was here, Kraz and Bill Latola, who were absolutely phenomenal teachers back when I was coming through. And when you think about your time at Prouty, and I'll get into this in a minute, it is a special place, and you'll remember the people who touched you here a lot more than you will anywhere else. I honestly cannot remember a college professor I had, not a one. But I remember a lot of the teachers who were here when I came through Prouty to this day, and even when I haven't seen them in years, decades in some cases, they still hold a very special place in my heart and are the reason why I've done well. So keep that in mind as you prepare to go out into the world. So quick show of hands. How many have senioritis at this point? I just want to gauge where I'm at here. Okay. So here comes the trick question. How many of those of you who just raised your hands as having senioritis, how many of you were juniors? So, okay. Are we getting names? So I fully understand having a senior. My youngest daughter is a senior this year, and she graduates in a month. So I'm going through that at home right now, and so I fully understand that you know, you've got other things on your mind at this point in your life. But I figured I'd throw a few thoughts out there, and I want to start with a kind of a cold hard fact. And you know, it may not seem like it, but you know, we've got people up on stage, and you tend to look at people on stage and say, "Wow, what's so special about them?" Well, there's nothing special about people that are in front. The cold hard fact is most of us all started exactly where you started, where you're sitting today. I mean, 30 years ago, I was sitting in that seat. 30 years ago, 30 years. So it was 1948, 1986, but. So the difference is we're just older and a little further along in our life journey. And you guys are just starting it, and that should be really exciting to you, because the world is completely open to you, and it's all about what you want to do with it. And here's cold fact number 2. You grew up in Spencer, and you are graduating from, some of you soon, from David Prouty High School. You can't really change those facts. The reality is it's sort of irrelevant when you leave here. That'll always be a huge part of who you are, but what you do from now on, and who you compete against that went to other high schools, some better, some worse, some richer, some poorer, irrelevant. It's what you do from this point on that really matters in life. So I started to think about what over the past 30 years since I left here, what have I done right? And you know, maybe it's because I'm sort of self-critical, but there are a lot of things that popped into my head that didn't seem all that right. You know, I started off with no money to go to school, so I took an ROTC scholarship and signed my life away for 4 years to pay for school. I went on to the University of Vermont and grossly underperformed as an undergraduate. And my mom and dad are shaking their heads. Yeah, you did. So I came out of here with high expectations and grossly underperformed, but my social life was fun. So after, luckily I managed to keep my head just barely above water enough to keep my scholarship and graduate and got a commission in the Air Force. And the other thing that I sort of didn't necessarily do right is, in 23 plus years that I spent in the Air Force, I never sort of learned the fine art of knowing when to keep my mouth shut. And that's sort of gotten me in trouble over the years at times, and now Kraz and Bill Latola are shaking their heads, yeah. Still, right? You haven't grown up yet. So that's another thing that I look back and I go, yeah, I didn't do that too right. I really, interestingly enough, never had a plan. I was just talking to Dennis Streeter about this. I've never had a plan in my life. When I went off to school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I majored in engineering because that's what they were giving scholarships in, and it seemed like a good idea at the time. But I've never, even throughout my Air Force career, I've never really had a plan. I just sort of show up to work every day and do what I need to do, and opportunities just sort of hit you. Which gets to my sort of point. When I started thinking about what I've done right, I guess I've sort of done three things right, and I clued into this pretty soon after I left here. The three things I've done right is I've worked harder than most people around me, I've worked smarter than most people around me, and I always try to have fun no matter what I'm doing. And that's it. That's simple. I'm not very bright, so I have to sort of dumb things down a little bit. But that's what I've lived by since I left Prouty 30 years ago. And it's simple, but notice I said it's simple, but it's not easy. So it's actually pretty hard to do that on a daily basis. So let's break those down a little bit. Working hard, and I'm not talking about working long. I've met a lot of people in my life who work 80 hours a week and think that's working hard. And most of those people end up doing about 10 hours of work in that 80 hours. They're there because they want to show their face and they want the boss to see them and pretend that they're working hard. That's not working hard. Working hard is about showing up every day, focusing, following through, and finishing. The 3 F's, I guess. And that's really what hard work is. It doesn't matter if you work 20, 30, 40, 60 hours a week. There are going to be times in your life when you have to work more than 40 hours a week. The key is what you do when you're at work or when you're at school. Now, I just read an article a couple of weeks ago by this guy who made the whole idea of the article was that the idea that hard work gets you ahead in the United States of America is a fallacy. That was his entire thesis. He went on to say that it's the greatest myth in U.S. history that hard work gets you ahead. And as I'm reading the article, I'm thinking, first I'm thinking this guy's a socialist, which he probably is. But his political persuasion aside, he couldn't be any more flat out wrong. Absolutely wrong. There is nothing in this world that will make you successful more than hard work. In fact, I would argue in my experience, if you show up and work harder than everybody around you, you're ahead of 80%, 85% of the people in the world, and you'll always succeed. Whether you're smart or not, whether you're good looking or not, whether you're thin or fat, it doesn't matter. If you work hard, you're gonna get ahead. But sometimes that's not enough. You also have to work smart, and by working smart, I don't mean that you're the smartest guy in the room, because most of the time you won't be. I mean, there are a lot of smart people in the world, and I've met a lot of smart people in the world in my travels, and a lot of them have never amounted to anything because they overthink things and they can't apply their smarts to the real world. So when I talk about thinking smart, I'm really talking about just thinking about what you do for a living, or thinking about your school. It's thinking with a purpose. It's being smart for a purpose, right? Think so you do your job better. That's what working smart is all about. And that gets you like an extra 15%. So I think I had trouble with my dad. I was trying to figure out how old he was by when he graduated. I'm doing public math here, but so if you work hard, you'll be ahead of 80% of the people in the world. If you work smart, you'll be ahead of another 15%. So that puts you in the 95th percentile right there. Just do those two things. And finally, have fun, because nobody wants to be around an uptight person that's always wound tightly and takes themselves too seriously. It just doesn't work. If you have fun with what you're doing and you laugh along the way and you joke around with people, people will want to be around you. They'll follow you. That's just the way it is. You have to trust me on that one. And the good side note on that one is, during those times when your hard work and your smart work isn't being recognized, because there are going to be times when people just don't recognize how hard you're working. During those times, you'll still be having fun. So it's kind of an extra added benefit. Now, I said up front that it's a pretty simple philosophy, but not an easy one. The reason why it's not easy is because you have to do it consistently every day of your life. When you have an off day, you got to come back and work hard the next day. I mean, there's no way around it. There's no shortcut. I guarantee you that the distinguished alumni, I think it was Julie's brother, Mike Noonan, who sold his company for a lot of money. I can guarantee you he worked really, really hard to build that business over a number of years. I know he did. So that's the key. You have to do it every single day, consistent. In fact, when you look at your life, the reason why I stand up here and I don't necessarily feel all that distinguished or great is because I look at my life the way I lived it, a day at a time, and that's what a life is when you break it down. It's just a string of days. So you can take advantage of each of those days, build momentum, and you'll be a success. Or you can waste those days, and eventually you just get caught in a rut and you end up going nowhere. And one final note on that, as you guys are sort of going out into the world, it's important that you define success on your terms, because you'll hear all kinds of people talking about, we talk about success. He's a success, she's a success. I don't even know what that means. But what I do know is each of you knows what it means if you look into your own heart and soul. And you have to decide what that is. If that's making a ton of money, or being a CEO, or being a professional sports player, or just raising a good family, or being a good person, or whatever it is that you feel is your definition of success, go with it. Go with it and step out in that direction and keep stepping every day towards that goal. Because everybody defines success. Don't let anybody else define success for you. Big house is not necessarily success. For me, money was never success, rank was never success, position was never success. I don't care about that stuff. I just wanted to make a difference every day. So again, I'm not special, even though I'm standing up in front of you today. I've taken a lot of opportunities that have been thrown my way. I've worked harder and I've worked smarter than most people around me, and it seems to me, and I'll quote Ashton Kutcher on this one, it seems to me the harder I work, the luckier I get, if that makes sense. It probably will as you go out in the world. But it all started right here in this building where you guys sit today. So don't ever forget where you came from, whether you realize it right now or not. This is a special place. I didn't miss Spencer until a couple of years after I left and realized what a great place this was. And as I've moved around the world and around the country in my Air Force career, I've realized even more how special of a place this is. Spencer's a great town, Prouty's a great school. So you've got a head start over a lot of people as you go out. So thanks for your time today. I sincerely wish you all the best of luck. Again, I'm honored to be here, and I thank you for your time. Good luck to all of you. Appreciate it.
And now I'd like to introduce to you our second honoree, Dr. Ralph Hicks.
Thank you, Principal Jordan, Superintendent Crow, members of the Distinguished Alumni Committee, distinguished faculty, and students. There are two teachers here that taught at the high school when I was in high school, and I graduated in 1964. Figure that one out, huh? And that would be Mr. Crosby and Mr. Gaudette. So a round of applause for them. If I missed anybody, please stand up and I apologize. I'm going to repeat some of what Dr. Gaudette said, but I'm also going to tell you a story about Prouty, about my life, and how Prouty affected my life. First of all, it would go without saying that your parents mold you into what you are first and foremost, then your parents do, and the schools that you go to mold you into what you are. The Proudy that I went to was not this building. The Proudy that I went to is about a half mile down the road on the right, and it's called Senior Living at Proudy. That was the original David Proudy High School, built, I believe, in 1888. And when I came to town at 14 years of age, beginning of my freshman year, and they told me that's where I was going to school, I said, my heavens, it looks like a castle. Because if you look at the building, there were the turrets and the granite steps in the front and everything. This school certainly needs to be refurbished or rebuilt, and we're hoping we're going to be able to do that in the very near future. But when I went to the old Proudy, if you think this school is old-fashioned, you should have been in that school. Because remember, it was built in the 19th century. And when I graduated from there, it had been in service for 76 years. But that's not what's truly important. What is important is the Panther pride that you all have. It's the teachers that you have, the commitment that they have to education. And that transferred very easily from the old building up here to what was then the new building. And my brother Joshua graduated from the new building in 1966. I went 4 years in the old building. I had many teachers that were an inspiration, and many things that Proudy taught me that I took with me. I went to a very small state college, the smallest state college in Massachusetts, North Adams State College, which is now called the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts. If you've heard of it, that's how you would know it today. How did I get there? Well, it's interesting, because the principal at the time, whose name I am not going to mention, had actually written on my college application papers that, quote, this student is not suited to college-level work. That's what my principal said about me. And the reason I know it, because a very, very great lady was so frustrated with what he wrote that she actually showed me what he wrote, something that she shouldn't have done. And that great lady's name was Evangeline Goddard. And how many of you know who Evangeline Goddard was? Raise your hands. A few of you do. Are there any students here that know who she is? Okay. How many of you go to the guidance office? Come on. None of you? Okay. The next time you go to the guidance office, when you walk down the glass enclosed walkway, the catwalk as I call it, look at the plaque that's there. It's the Evangeline Goddard Guidance Center. Miss Goddard, who was totally devoted to, first of all, her student who was deaf, her sister who was deaf, okay, but totally devoted to David Proudy High School and its students. She's the one that said to me, I know a school for you to go to. She goes, I sent a student there 2 years ago who was very similar to you, very like you, and he's done really, really well. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, going to a small state college. Had I gone to UMass in Amherst, where I received my doctorate many years later, I probably would have been selling used cars today. That's the reality of it. But Miss Goddard knew where to send us. Just as Mr. Gaudette, when he took the position over from Miss Goddard, I believe you took it over from Miss Goddard, okay, knew his students and knew what was best for them. The guidance is very important. It's a word that I take very seriously. After I graduated from North Adams State College, I started teaching in a parochial school in Webster, St. Joseph's School. My intent when I went to North Adams State College was to be a high school history teacher. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that by the time I graduated, there wouldn't be a need for many high school history teachers. So I wound up being fortunate enough to go to Webster, teach in a parochial school for 4 years, where we were departmentalized in grades 5 and 6. And I taught social studies for grades 5 and 6. There were 2 classes of each grade, and had my home room for reading and art and music and phys ed. I wasn't the best music and art teacher, I can tell you. I'm not the best phys ed teacher either. But, that's the way it was. Started working on a master's degree in guidance at Worcester State College, which is now Worcester State University. I wanted to be a guidance counselor. I wanted to help kids with their lives in a special way on a one-to-one basis, something you can't do as a classroom teacher. After 4 years, I was fortunate enough to be hired up in Athol as the quote-unquote elementary guidance counselor and school psychologist for 1,300 students in 6 schools. Think about that, okay? And guidance counselors here think maybe they're overworked, but that's what I had for a caseload. I worked hard, just as Dr. Gaudette said. It's something that we all have to do. And I was recognized for my work, and I worked smarter. I was recognized for that. 2 years later, when a new special education law came out called Chapter 766, it's now called IDEA, I was approached, I did not apply, approached to be the district's first special education director. That would be the Athol-Royalston Regional School District. I then moved on to a much larger district in the city of Chicopee, school district with about 10,000 students when I was there as the special education director. Stayed there 21 years and got a little closer to home in Auburn as the director of pupil services. And then in 2004, I applied for the superintendent's job in Spencer East Brookfield only because it was my hometown. And I thought I knew I would do a good job as superintendent. I'd like to hope and think that I did. And I thought, well, if I don't apply and they hire some bozo, because God knows I've worked with a lot of bozos, also a lot of good people too, okay? I'll never forgive myself if I don't at least try. Fortunately, I was hired, had 7 good years here, had a disagreement with some of the newer school committee members that came in after I was hired, and I very quickly was hired in Ashburnham and Westminster as their superintendent of schools. And that regional school district is just a little bit bigger than Spencer East Brookfield. I retired this past July and got a phone call a few months later from Worcester State University asking me if I would like to teach graduate courses to future school administrators. So that's what I do now. I'm a part-time adjunct professor at Worcester State University. And I did this all, remember, in spite of what my high school principal thought I could do. He did not think I could go to college. He, for some reason, didn't think I had it in me. No, yes, I wasn't the brightest student in my class, but I wasn't the dumbest either. I wasn't the slowest. I wasn't the least hardworking one. I was more or less an average student, but I had motivation. I had drive, and that's what you have to have, okay? Because as Dr. Gaudette said, it doesn't really matter, you know, how smart you are, okay, or how tall you are, or how thin you are. You can be fat, you can be thin, you can be short, like me. You can be tall, okay? It doesn't matter, all right? Life is what you make out of it, folks. And even with all the problems that we've had over the past few years at the school district, I am convinced that Prouty still has the ability and the capability and does perform well for you. I think you're getting a good high school education. You're getting a good foundation. You know, when I went away to North Adams State College, I was 100 miles away from home. I'd never been away from home before. And those of you that are considering going away from home, at first it can be very traumatic. And some stay, and some end up coming back home and commuting, you know, to a local college. All right, I stayed, but it was hard. But one thing that impressed me, my first day of classes, one of my favorite professors was a man named Ames S. Pierce. And Professor Pierce literally was about that tall. I'm not that tall, obviously. I never was on a basketball team, but Professor Pierce was probably under 5 feet tall. And he took time to go around and ask each and every one of us where we were from. And he got to me. And I said, Spencer, Massachusetts. He goes, and you have to know Professor Pierce. He goes, Spencer. He talked like that. He goes, David Prouty High School. Good school, good school. And then he went on to the next student. That's what he said, 100 miles away. Good school, good school. This is a good school. It's what you make of it, okay? You can go to the top high school in the country, okay? And they're ranked in U.S. World and News Report, if you ever want to find out the top high school in the country, okay? But it's not the high school you graduate from so much as it is what you do at that high school. And you have to have the drive, you have to have the motivation, and yes, you have to work hard. Nobody's going to hand you a free lunch. And I hope you all realize that. Prouty's been good to me. It's been good to my family. My 2 children graduated from Prouty. I have 5 grandchildren that have attended Prouty. 2 are still here. I'm going to commit the cardinal sin of asking them to stand up so I can introduce them. The last thing in the world you want to do with your peers is be singled out. Derek, where are you? Derek? Are you here, Derek? He's not here. You got to be kidding me. Brianna? Where are you, Bree? Well, they're either hiding or they weren't here. I really was hoping they would be here. Derek Mensa and Brianna Mensa, my daughter Lisa's 2 children. But anyway, I've embarrassed them enough. I also want to tell you something too that's important, I think. When I came to Spencer, I knew nobody. I came here Labor Day weekend from the Springfield area. My roots are very humble, and I'm very humbled by getting this award today also. I don't want to not mention that. Mr. Gaudette knows when I came to Spencer, my father ran a bar room, and we lived over the bar room. It was called the Hotel Windsor. And if any of you have grandparents, great-grandparents that are alive, they will remember that the Hotel Windsor was basically a dive, okay? But that's where I lived when I came to Spencer, on Chestnut Street, okay? I didn't live in a big white house like I do now on Lyford Road. I lived over a bar on Chestnut Street. And there were days when times were tough, and I can honestly tell you, there were times, I remember opening the refrigerator one day, and this is a true story, there were a handful of potatoes and a half a stick of butter in the refrigerator. That's what we had in the refrigerator. So those of you that may come from humble roots like I did, I don't want you to think you can't make something of yourself. Whether you choose to go to college, get an ROTC scholarship like Dr. Gaudette, or take out college loans or get other scholarships, okay? Or you come from a family that can afford to pay your tuition to the finest college or university. You can do what you want to do if you set your mind to it. Prouty is giving you a foundation in which to be able to do that, all right? And as you go on in your life, all right, remember David Prouty High School. And remember the people who helped you, your teachers, your family, such as my wife, Tina, who's a second-grade teacher in North Brookfield. Stand up, Tina. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. I never would have been able to have the jobs that I've had where I'd have to work 50, 60, sometimes more than 60 hours a week, have a commute, and I wouldn't be able to have gotten my doctorate at UMass Amherst. Any of you that know anybody that has a doctoral degree knows it's grueling to get. It's a lot of hard work that goes into it, a lot of time away from home, and my wife helped make that possible. But I want you to know that before I close, that there were teachers in Prouty, okay, and one teacher when I was in junior high in Wilbraham, who had me decide to be a teacher. I never thought I'd be a superintendent of schools. You never know where life's going to take you. You get on the path and you start walking, and it's an adventure, but make it a good adventure. As Dr. Gaudette said, enjoy what you are doing. If you find yourself in a job that you don't enjoy, if you find every morning getting up and saying, oh God, I don't want to go there, have the gumption and the guts to look elsewhere and change your life around, change your career. It was something that I feel very strongly in. I enjoy going to work. Were there days when I was frustrated, days when I was hurt, days when I felt, oh my God, I can't keep doing this? Sure there were. I don't want you to think that life is a bowl of cherries, because it isn't. Because as one author said, it's also full of pits. But the pits you can conquer. The pits you can conquer. And you can make what you want out of your life. But remember Prouty, because the teachers here that worked with you, they want you to do the best they can in their life. They want to see you up here someday, talking to them. And I know you can't all be here someday because they only do 2 a year. But you want them to be proud of you just as you want your parents to be proud of you. And that's something that they want for you, and they help mold you into doing that. So keep your Panther pride, keep your own head held up, and someday, folks, look back on these years as the years that helped you to be what you are, the years that you can remember fondly, hopefully, because you only go this way once. You're only going to be in high school once. Make the best of it. I want to wish you all the very best of luck and Godspeed in your journey. Walk that path and walk it well. Thank you very much.
And now I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Tracy Crow, who will be presenting the citations from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan. Distinguished guests, alumni, faculty, administration, and especially the students. It is indeed my honor and privilege today to act on behalf of Donnie Berthium, who is unable to be here. I have proclamations that I'd like to read right now for our distinguished alumni. Commonwealth of Massachusetts from the House of Representatives. Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to our honored guest today in recognition of the auspicious occasion of the receipt of the David Prouty Distinguished Alumni Award and for the example that you have set for all students through your achievements. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all its endeavors. It's given this 27th day of April, 2016, from the State House, Boston, Massachusetts, and it's signed by the Speaker of the House, Robert DeLeo, and as well as State Representative Donnie Berthium. I think that based on the stories that we've heard today for our distinguished alumni, you can see that they are indeed role models for all of you, and I hope that they'll be an inspiration for your future years and success. Dr. Gaudette and Dr. Hicks.
Before we come to a close, I would like to introduce William Latola, who has a special presentation.
Thank you all. I've come back to this place that I loved for 34 years. I was a teacher here, student council advisor for many years, department chairman, and I had the pleasure and honor of having over 4,000 students. Many of them are your fathers, your mothers, your aunts, your uncles, maybe even your grandparents. I am currently vice chairman of the Board of Trustees for the David Prouty High School Scholarship Fund. Seniors, be sure you get your registrations in before the deadline next week. Make sure that you get your applications done so that we can have an opportunity to select you in the near future for scholarships at your graduation. But I'm here today to honor another person. I've had the pleasure of knowing Richard Gaudette for the past 47 years. I consider his entire family as my friends. I had all 5 of them as students. See my gray hair? And I also employed 3 of them as lifeguards and supervisors at Luther Hill Park. This is the first time that we've had the honor of selecting 3 alumni. Richard has been the chairman of the Alumni Committee over the past several years, and he has informed us recently that he is resigning as our chairman. He has been part of this school, as you've heard, for its entire existence, as well as being a graduate and a teacher before this school was built. It is both fitting and proper that we honor Richard. I have never seen anybody care more about this school, about the students, about the staff than Richard Gaudette. It is my honor and privilege to award this certificate to our former guidance director, Richard Gaudette.
I have to admit that I'm a little overwhelmed. This was not expected nor necessary. But I appreciate it, and I thank you, Bill, and whoever else was involved in this. It's an honor for me to be able to have done what I've done and to be recognized for it. Thank you very much.
Before we leave today, I would like to ask for one more round of applause for all our distinguished alumni. And students, thank you for being such an attentive audience, and for a reward, you now can go back to class. Thank you.